This is my friend, the artist, who is a literature expert, and I have invited you here to talk because we were going to have a normal conversation like we regularly have about books,
Yeah.
and it was 2 o'clock, and I knew that I had to do a live stream this week because the one I've got scheduled is 2 weeks out, and I'm just doing one every week. So I was like, well, we could just record this conversation because I want people. So few people care about literature,
Mm.
and I shaved today, so I looked like more of a nerd.
I
And
haven't shaved in a long time.
no, this morning I looked just like a farmer, and then I was like, man, I might talk about books today, and so I took it off. And so that's what's going on. So people don't care about literature. They should. They don't have time to. But we're gonna. I have a more eclectic audience, and I'm trying to bring people together. As you have pointed out, there are people that you're afraid to talk around
Sure.
in my circles now that I have made great friends with.
It's not so much that I'm afraid to talk around them as it is that that I would rather not they talk around me.
Well, you know what's funny? I just said that to a woman in the last person I streamed with was Pierce Watkins, and Pierce Watkins is this really I like him a lot. He's a good guy, but he supports gay marriage, in fact.
Mm.
And just to give you an example of what kind of guy he is, and as far as his opinions, his approach to like talking to people is wonderful, diamond in the rough. Um, and so I was in one of his areas, and there was a woman there who just like she's like, oh, all these BS opinions, controversy, conspiracy theories and stuff like that, and laid out a list of things. And I read it, and it was I can't remember the list. It was like something something on there really stood out to me, but I can't remember it. It was like things like the federal government keeps track of social media accounts to make sure that they are promoting good opinions. You
Mm.
know what I mean? Like, and she's like, these crazy theories and just idiots. Can you believe people even think about this? Just like right off the bat. And I was like, you know what's funny? I was like, I talk to people all the time on a regular basis. Some of them have PhDs, academic staff, if that impresses you. Other people are just very successful in life. Other people are experts in literature. You know, like very respectable, high intelligence people who believe all of these things to be true.
Mm. Hmm.
And you just said something publicly that guarantees they'll never talk to you.
All right.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I've
Yeah.
got guys like you that are there watching those kinds of interactions happen. And I'm actually like, I'm trying to bring both sides together because I also have people that would never go anywhere near Discord who are
Mm.
like movers and shakers in the Catholic world or some other place.
Sure.
And they always keep their cards very close to their chest, and they don't like vulgarity. They have children, stuff like that. And they tend to be involved in like the more conservative side of things, but also like the more like refined part of the public space. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And then you have very vulgar, like 20 to 30-year-olds who know
Sure.
for a fact that the Fed is a
Yeah.
privately owned bank that
Yeah.
runs our lives and we're enslaved to it. You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
it's like these two groups need to come together, you know?
Yeah.
Because there's
Yeah.
60-year-olds and 70-year-olds that are retired that have tons of money and they're just like pouring it into 401ks,
Mm.
sitting next to like a 30-year-old at church who's trying to raise kids who like
Yeah.
wants to start a sawmill and just needs like
Right.
$5,000 to buy a piece of. Anyways, getting off track. We're supposed to talk about books. But I just kind of wanted to give an idea of my philosophy of why I'm
Sure.
doing everything that I'm doing. I'm just trying to expose people to things. So,
Well,
what do you think about Cormac McCarthy? I had, I had to
What
read
a
the
transition!
title.
What a transition! Um, yeah,
You're one
the
of the few guys
exposure.
I can do this with.
Well, so we
I'm
could
looking
we
at
could
my list
go
of
we
questions
could go
now
to a
again.
different place. We could start with
I remember the first question. This is a better transition.
okay.
How are things?
Well, we we sort of preempted this stream with we already covered that one. So,
I've been
but
I've been studying marketing and I've been literally money counting all weekend. And
mm,
so I pre-planned like a lawyer what we were going to talk about when I said
yeah,
how are things. And
yeah,
I literally was talking about it's just what we were talking about. I said Discord, art, social stuff, creatures, which is a word you used that I found
yeah,
fascinating.
yeah.
Online community, marketing, content creation.
Hmm.
I guess that has a lot to do with what I'm up to.
Well, so I'll take the transition and
You see how narcissistic I am. Thank you for helping
your
me.
yeah, yeah, no problem. Uh, The the um the meeting of these two very disparate types of people is
Yeah.
interesting, and I think that literature is to totally segue into everything
Yeah, it
is one
actually
of those places where it really does happen. I think that there are some actually pretty. I, I hesitate to call it mainstream, but for all intents and purposes, it may be postmodern and long and difficult. But a book. Let me get here. A book like Gravity's Rainbow. I don't know if you've ever read
right.
by Thomas Pynchon. Is
No.
all about paranoia and the government working behind the scenes, and it's a very, I mean, one of the most probably famous works of um, um, like difficult American postmodern literature. And I think Pynchon worked for Boeing for a number of years. Really smart guy. Most of
Oh
the
yeah.
book is about is around the V2 rocket, but there's some really like heinous stuff going on in that book, and a lot of it is Gnostic and Kabbalah and all of these very sort of dark entities. But he gets into Operation
Yeah, the
Paperclip
founding
and
principles of America. Go ahead.
yeah, yeah. Seriously though, the founding principles of America being like that we took a bunch of Nazi scientists in World War II and brought them back to give us basically all the technology that we've built the country on since then. And so there's like um, some very like even like Stephen King. What is it? 11/22/63 is all about the JFK assassination and stuff like that. And
Oh,
that's more fiction. That I mean, Gravity's Rainbow is fiction too, but there is some truth in it. There's a whole
well, that's what.
one of my favorite bits from Gravity's Rainbow is about um, this sentient light bulb. His name is Byron, and you get this little like vignette in the novel where you follow Byron as he is like born and then becomes immortal, and how his immortality, the fact that we used to make light bulbs that would last forever, that became a problem for big light bulb, so to speak.
Right.
And
Right.
then there was actually like a group of like light bulb hitmen who would go around and systematically like destroy these like eternal bulbs that would just never go out. Um,
He's
and
talking
and
about
like
Tesla.
these organizations like are real. They actually exist. Like you can look them up, and there was this society of like light bulb hitmen that went around and would take out these light bulbs that were made with like a certain filament that wouldn't die. I think there's still a light bulb in a firehouse in Los Angeles. I can't. It might not be Los Angeles. Somewhere. somewhere in California, there's like a firehouse that has a light bulb in it that's been on for like over 100 years or something like that at this point. And it's just
Wow.
will never go out, and it has its own like live feed. Like you can go and watch the stream of it on the firehouse's website. And so there was like, it's a lot of this is legitimate. There's like this fact that
That
there
actually
was a
exists.
conspiracy by GE and all of the other electrical companies that were like, we're only going to make light bulbs that have this many hours to it, because otherwise we're never going to sell another light bulb. So we have to do
Right.
it. And so it kind of like, although it's ridiculous and funny, it bridges that gap of like, the people who are retired and have enough time to read serious, difficult literature, in with like a little bit more of the paranoid,
Right. Well,
conspiracy crowd.
it's more true in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Um, I was just reading. I was trying to like get ready to talk to you, so I was reading East to Eden,
Hmm.
and I happened to hit like right before I was putting the children to bed, and I fell asleep doing it because I'm trying to teach my son not to suck his thumb,
Hmm.
and I was reading this, and it was just so fascinating because my whole mind has been focused on for like a long time now on America, American industrialism, and how it works. And it's like he just has this whole conversation about the railroads and how they populated these places. Well, at the beginning of the book, he talked about how bad it was to live in Salinas Valley. Like it didn't make sense to live in a lot of what Salinas Valley was. And then, but he talks about how the railroads sold people on it so that people could travel. And it's like, he's got a really, I don't know if I just want to read from a book, but
Yeah, he makes it seem like if you read the billboard, you would think that like there's no other place on earth to live other than this place, and who wouldn't sell everything they have to move here. And then
yeah,
you
that's
have,
still true.
and then on the other hand, you have uh, Samuel. Is that, yeah? You have Samuel Harrison, right? Who's
Right.
like, who lives in that area, and his land is just completely useless. Like there's
Yeah.
nothing there for him to do other than live by his wits, essentially, off
Yeah, it's just
of
water.
other men's land. Yeah,
Right. Yeah, there's no water, which is a
yeah.
very, I was actually just today listening to something about water as a metaphor for like masculine energy.
Hmm.
And it's because we talked about reading this book together, and I've been writing Marcus Woodward. I've
Hmm.
actually so I wrote I banged out the whole second half of Marcus Woodward, the rewrite. Um, I think between like February and April maybe, and then I started on the second book, which I had never gotten very far into, and I put down like 20,000 words in it before the rush of activity because I'm doing all this business and stuff. So I'm trying to fix this thing. And now I'm going back and redoing Johnny the Cowboy because that's all the same series. I don't know. Do you remember Johnny the Cowboy? Because that was a lot of fun.
I didn't read much of Johnny the Cowboy, I don't think. I think I was
You don't have
around.
to.
I don't know if it was finished. I think I
No,
was
it's not
around
still.
when.
Never
Right,
did
right.
finish.
Okay,
Every
okay.
every
That makes
like
sense.
year or 2 years, I pick up and write Johnny the Cowboy, and I write
Okay. I think
ten
I
thousand
think
words.
you introduced me to Coulter Wall while you were writing Johnny the Cowboy.
Yeah,
When you had like a whole like Western playlist that you would listen to, and you'd sit down and write.
yeah, and that's why I run out of steam on that one because
Mm,
there's a certain amount of like Western flair. It helps to live in Texas now because it is not what it pretends to be.
mm,
Kind of like Salinas Valley. In fact, I've had a very similar experience coming to Texas, and I
mm.
knew it would happen. And I feel like Samuel because I followed the Holy Ghost here. I knew it was going
Have
to be bad, and
you
I came out.
have you read Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy?
I have not. I haven't. I picked up. Okay, so this is what I've done for Cormac McCarthy. I wanted to ask you about it. The next question I was going to ask you is, tell me the plot because I picked up the road after watching the movie, and I
Mm,
didn't. I didn't get into it.
mm.
Um, and I was probably 16, and
Okay.
I watched. Child of God, I think. It's about like
Ye-
the weirdo who's losing his house.
Yeah, that's like the necrophiliac one. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I've only
That was actually the
gotten
first Cormac McCarthy book I ever read. It was a
really.
weird introduction. Yeah.
Well, he's a weird. Well,
Yeah.
so that's what I wanted to know because I know I was actually reading something on Substack from one of these literature Substacks, and he was talking about Cormac McCarthy, and he was talking about video games from a storytelling art perspective. And
Mm.
I wrote an article about it because I thought it was really interesting, profound. But he was talking about how video games have aged with their audience, where like 10 years ago, all the video games were how to be a man. It was like violence, wanton
Mm.
promiscuity, it was like, and then now it's how to be a father. So
Mm.
it's like now all the video games are like, have these like father roles. They're just so crazy. Like all
That's
the characters
interesting.
that were just like pornography actors 10 years ago are now like
Yeah.
having children in the video
Yeah.
games. Because
Right.
he was comparing The Last of Us, I think, with Cormac McCarthy's The Road,
Yeah.
and anyways,
No, that makes
but
sense. Even like God of War used to just be like just
yeah, that's exactly
violence and sexuality, and now
he
it's like
brought
a
that one
father
up.
and son story. Yeah. It's
Yeah, he
really
said
weird.
there's like randomly a child in there. I don't
Mm-hmm.
keep up with this stuff, so I found it fascinating because I'm a storyteller, but that's the medium people like, and I can't break
Yeah.
into it because I don't have the technical experience. But if you want to make a video game, I am down. I will do it. That's how I'll
Well,
change this world.
I'm just an artist. I don't have the technical either. I have a very limited experience with the technical side of things, and I've
There are some
uh
technical people who follow me now, and I've been trying to get them, but like they're one of the few people that are still highly paid and still um, just like so they still go to work and work like a 12-hour shift and don't come home thinking, oh, I need to do something else. This
right,
is going to work
right,
out. Like if I work a 12-hour shift, they're not going to pay me what I'm worth for that. But those guys, they get paid like 60, 80, 100,000, depending on
right,
how old they are.
right,
So you can't get them to do something new. You can't be like, come, make a video game with me. We're going to change the
right.
world. But if a
Yeah.
dude's working at a factory, you can say that to him. He's like, yeah, I've been looking for work.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and it's interesting because even like if you're gonna do anything like that, there just has to be a certain amount of like voluntary passion to get that started, and there has to
Yeah,
be um at a certain point you have to make that transition over to like, oh, this is something that I could get paid for or like justify the investment of my time, and
yeah,
and then it becomes like, well, what is the leadership structure of this? So what's the organizational structure? Who is making the decisions about where it goes, and who's following those orders on the back end of it? And so
right.
like I've had plenty of times with like a friend of mine that we've sit down and like really fleshed out an idea of like a game that we would like to work on, and then it gets to a point where we differ on like, well, what are we what's the point of this? What are we doing
What's
over
the
here?
end
How
goal?
much? Yeah, and
Yeah,
who gets to make those calls and who gets to make those decisions is always a tricky thing to navigate when nobody's getting paid and there is no ownership of anything, and it's just first come first serve for who wants to take ownership of it. It can be really tricky.
I will say a point in my favor. I have a track record of being very good at handling that. Let me take the sweater off.
Sure.
It was freezing cold in this room when I got in here for some reason. It's the summer and it's like 100 degrees outside, but this one room we haven't used, just air conditioning was pumping into it. I don't know why.
Hmm.
I think in fact, my plan is basically out of passion because I've written like over a dozen books. So, I mean, that's uncountable thousands of hours that I've just
Hmm.
spent working on something because I care about it.
Right.
And
Right.
it's between me and God, which I think is part of the limitation on video games because people have a hard time, I think, bringing it towards God.
Yeah.
I feel like we should get back on track though.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Before I
Well, it's
propose a business to you. Right.
yeah. Well, video games are hard because there's a certain barrier there, to
Technical.
publishing and getting things to work right. But with writing, I mean, you can sit down. Anybody who knows how to hold a pen and put letters on a page can sit down and do it for as long
Right.
as they can focus for it. And it's a very sort of pure kind of endeavor in that way. And that is, I think, to get back to Cormac McCarthy, I think
Yeah. Tell me about him.
that's how he really sees it, and that's how um, his fan base tends to see him as like as sort of like a purist, like one of the last sort of American authors, the great American authors, who was just an author, who never had any other job, like never did anything else other than write. And he was
Really?
extremely, extremely poor for a long time. There's a story about him like not being able to afford to buy toothpaste or like a toothbrush or something like that, because he was just like, I refuse to do anything other than write. And he was, I think, um, pretty well educated. I can't remember how well educated and connected he was, but I know that he was eventually I I want to say he moved to Arizona to be a part of a university and write in a more official capacity. But the road, I mean, the road is he won the Pulitzer for the road, I believe, and um, it is one of the few like really respectable sort of like apocalyptic dystopian novels, I think. Most I'll say this, there are very few dystopian novels in general that aren't political at their base. It's almost
Right.
always about authoritarianism and fighting against some kind of government force, or there are some dystopias that are um, like forces of nature, like you're fighting against a disease or fallout from
There are
some
some I've seen
cataclysm or something. But
in like lower art, like movies and stuff. I see a lot more. Seemed like there were more showing up that were about corporations and
mhm,
like the money machine just tearing
yeah,
things up.
yeah, which becomes a different kind of authoritarianism, right? It's just a monetary authoritarianism at that point, essentially.
Well, it is
But
authority is authority.
but even
Yeah,
but
correct.
even
It's a very different mode of operation. That's
right,
very interesting
right,
from a storytelling perspective because
yeah.
the way they control is a little bit indirect. You
I
know,
mean,
more
I
like a
guess
devil.
ultimately you could say that there is like the authority of looming death is kind of at the is at the base of everything, right? The authority of violence is kind of at the base of any like dystopian apocalyptic survival story. And so in that way, maybe you could say that um, that the road has that tie-in. But the road came
Mhm.
out of, I think, so Cormac McCarthy is an older guy, and then he married younger and had a son late in life. And then I believe the story is that he was on a trip with his son, um, and he wanted to write a story. He felt inspired to write a story about a father and son and the sort of like the end of civilization, essentially, when there's like in the road there's really no more hope left. um, Everything is dying out. Plants won't grow. Animals are basically all but gone. um, Cannibalism is rampant. It's very, very bleak, and it's just about the relationship of the father and the son, and how one's desire to care for the other gets in the way of providing the sort of moral guidance that a father wants to give his son, and the kind of father that the son wants his father to be. So there's like this really deep kind of struggle there, and it's ultimately just like a social book. Like the book is I'll say that the apocalyptic backdrop is that it's just a backdrop, and the main story is the relationship between the father and the son. and it's very bleak. But Cormac McCarthy he stands out, I think, in his style, because his style is extremely sparse. So he doesn't use quotation marks around dialogue. He like rarely will use like commas and question marks. Like to him, all he wants to do is basically like put a period at the end of a sentence and capitalize the next letter, and that's about as much as he wants to do. So like the art of it is
That's
very,
fascinating.
very sparse, and it works so well with the road, because the world is extremely sparse. There's nothing there. Everything is just gray and empty, and everybody's just like half the book or more is just like hunting for food, like just searching, just trying, hoping to find something, anything. And so the style really is really married to the subject, I think, and it
The actual
worked really
environment.
well. Yeah. So I
Could
think
you?
that's
Would you?
really what got him off on a good
Well,
start.
you got me fascinated talking about the father and son thing. I feel like
Hmm.
so. What's the conflict? So he's supposed to be a good father. Is
Yeah.
it
So
because he has to teach his son to be evil or something like that?
it's because he is trying to be protective, and there are people who deal with them poorly. So like at one point they're like, it's in the movie as well. I don't know if you remember the scene where they I think they go out, they swim out to a boat or something. They swim out to, I can't remember, but they leave their belongings someplace, and someone comes behind them and steals their belongings, and they track this guy down and they find him, and he's like, pointing the gun at this guy, and he's like, all right, now strip off all your clothes, we're going to take all of our stuff, and now we're going to take your stuff too, because this is how you were going to leave us. And meanwhile his kid's like, Dad, please, can we just let him go? Like, can we just let bygones be bygones? And his dad's like, you don't think that he's got friends? You think he's going to come and he's going to tell somebody and they're going to follow us? Like, you think that he would have left us any better than we left, that we're going to leave him? And so there's like a lot of like emotional aspects where like his kid is still just a kid, and he wants his dad to like see some hope in the world, because it matters to the kid, because he's got a life still to live.
Ahead of
And his
him,
dad's
yeah.
and his dad's like really at the end of his thing, and he's just trying to set his son up for success, or at least for more survival. And his son is like, well, it's not really worth it. If this is what we're surviving for, it's not really worth it. And so there's a lot of like interplay there between certain characters. And I think there's like a blind guy that they befriend, and the kid wants to share food with him, and the dad's like, we don't have food to share, like, we're not doing this. And so there's a lot of like heavy moral decisions that they make, and the kid is like kind of this force for like innocence, and the dad is like kind of more of a realist in this like really dim sort of broken down world. But I think it actually has a really happy ending. So it's a very bleak book with a very like encouraging, hopeful kind of ending, surprisingly enough. But I
That's
think that,
very interesting.
yeah, that the road um, is really good, but I think Blood Meridian is better. I think
Really.
I think it's
We do have to
darker for
talk about
sure.
Stella Maris just because
Yeah,
I
yeah.
titled it
Stella
that way.
Maris. Yeah, yeah.
So what?
No.
So just help me. And I took so much time talking about nonsense, that had nothing to do with books and everything about the world. And then there's a beautiful metaphor for the current predicament in the world, but I won't go into it.
Yeah. So this is The Passenger in Stella Maris. It's a duology. It's um,
Can I
some
ask?
people say it could be one book, but
Can I ask you what? So, the Road, Blood Meridian, and that duology.
mhm.
When did they? When were they written? Like,
um,
what's the newest? What's the oldest?
I
I don't know why that's a
think
complicated question to
I
ask.
think The Road is the earliest, and
Okay.
then blood meridian, but I could be wrong. Stella, I mean, these are definitely the most recent. These are like 2022. These he published
So
right
he's
before he
still.
died.
Oh, okay. So he died recently.
Yeah, I think he died in 23, 24.
Okay,
Yeah.
so he was still writing and moving
Yeah,
on with it.
and these
Is
actually, I
he
think
Catholic?
he was
Or is he?
writing these. No, he's Gnostic, if anything. Yeah, he's a very interesting philosophically, but these I think he actually started writing these in like 2008. I want to say so.
No.
So it could be that the Road or Blood Meridian came out. I'd have to look it up. I could look it up real quick, but I won't waste the time. That these other books that he got famous for or popular for were published after he began writing these, and you can kind of tell some of the like subject matter of these books does feel a little old. There's a lot of like science and mathematics in here, and there's some parts of it that do feel a little like they would have been they would have sounded smarter if they came out 15 to 20 years earlier. It definitely shows a little bit of its age in that
Oh,
way.
yeah.
But I
Is he
think
talking
that
about like an inconvenient truth or something like
no,
that?
but no, there's things
That's always my thought.
like he
Good.
talks about like Kurt Gödel and stuff like that, and like I think it was oh gosh, what's his name? I can't remember the guy, but Hofstadter, I think, wrote Gödel Escher Bach, I think in like the late 90s, early 2000s, and that was like a really very popular kind of exploration of a whole bunch of different mathematical and musical ideas, and so it was like you could kind of see some of the pop science or pop mathematics ideas that were floating around at that time kind of eke their way into this writing a little bit. But
That's really interesting. I had
yeah,
no idea. I didn't know that
I mean they're
the pop
extremely
math
smart books,
writers.
but this so you have The Passenger, which is book one, and I got all my book darts in there. You can see, so I liked it well enough to fill it with darts. But this is
Nice.
like the much more masculine entry of the two. There is it's about a brother and a sister, and they're both geniuses, for lack of a better word. Their father worked on the Manhattan Project, where he met his mom, their mom, and I don't know if I should be weary of spoilers or how well I should treat this, but
I wouldn't worry about it because people don't read
okay,
books.
it's true, but
So I'm not too worried about it.
yeah, you couldn't really spoil it anyways. I mean,
Just
the
tell us about
narrative,
it like you
the
told us
plot
about the
is not,
road.
yeah, the plot is not really the main point of these, but the first one, The Passenger, follows the brother who is a salvage diver. It's kind of like a Southern Gothic novel, and
Southern Gothic.
yeah. So it's very much like he has like friends in the swamp who he'll go, and like one of my favorite scenes, he like goes to check up on a guy that he used to work with and who he used to be friends with, and he's like living out in the swamp. Nobody's seen him for a long time, and he shows up at his trailer, and he's like cocks his shotgun. He's like, "Who's stumbling around out there?" One of those kind of characters. He's like brings a bottle of whiskey just to appease the
Nice.
guy, and they get drunk together, and yeah, it's pretty funny. And then the second one is all about his sister, and there's a lot of messed up dynamics between the two, but she is like so she has gone so far down the rabbit hole that with mathematics, that she kind of sees something that most people really don't have the capacity to see, as far as the sort of like emptiness and meaninglessness of it, and struggles with the idea of modalities that once you once you lay down, once you start to draw a map of where you are, your depiction of the ideology of or your theory of mathematics affects the way that you now map out the rest of your path through that theory. So it's kind of like
That's what Bertrand
um
Russell had a problem with.
yeah. I mean, and he's in there too. They talk
That
about it
sounds like
to
it's a
death,
book
but
about Bertrand Russell. Yeah.
there is, yeah,
Yeah.
he's in there quite a bit. Yeah, he's in there quite a bit.
Okay. So that's what
But
he's talking about. Yeah, Bertrand
yeah.
Russell was just these were weird people. But
Yeah,
that's the
but
thing
I mean,
is they're very
hers gets
much
weird because she's so this whole
okay.
book is it opens with um, an admission note to Stella Maris, which is the name of a non-denominational facility and hospice for the care of psychiatric medical patients. So this entire book, and you can see like her admission letter here describing her condition. And it says patient is a 20-year-old Jewish Caucasian female, attractive, possibly anorexic, arrived at this facility 6 days ago, apparently by bus, without luggage. Admission signed by Dr. Wegner. Patient had a plastic bag full of $100 bills in her purse, something over $40,000, which she attempted to give the receptionist. Patient is a doctoral candidate in mathematics at the University of Chicago and has been diagnosed as paranoid schizophrenic with a long-lasting etiology of visual and auditory hallucinations. Resident of this facility on 2 prior occasions. So she has admitted herself to this facility, and the facility is called Stella Maris. And
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, she would go crazy if she started thinking
yeah,
about money. You know, I
yeah.
had a similar experience with my local feed store. I went down there and I had like $200 cash and I just laid out in front of her. I said, how much of my current acceptable currency do you want? And I was like, can I trade this for a large quantity of hard metals? It just gives me nickels. Good.
Oh
They owe
man.
me discount, so they know I'm
No,
just like giving it.
it's crazy. I think it's like their grandfather or something.
Because it's
Somebody
so preposterous the way
made a
money
bunch of
is.
money at one point and like buried it under their house. And her brother goes back and digs it up, and there's just like tubes full of gold coins. That's like I want to say it's a couple $1,000,000 that they get. And so it's just this like received fortune that is like untaxed. Her brother takes it and goes. He has always wanted to drive race cars, so he goes to Europe and becomes a driver and gets into an accident and is like in a coma. In the first book, it's after the coma. In the second book, he's in the coma, but she has been asked by the doctors to unplug him, basically. So she thinks he's never coming out of this. I love him too much to be able to unplug him, but I can't be there and watch him just be a vegetable forever. So she comes back to the United States and then checks her into this facility thinking, my brother is dead. I'm never going to see him again. We, as the reader, know
Oh,
he comes out of the coma and we get the whole second book. At the end of, we get the whole first book, I guess. In 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 book one, she's dead. She has committed suicide, which happens at the end of book two. So
oh wow.
she is she kills herself thinking that I don't have any family or reason left to live anymore. My brother is going to die. He's the only person I've ever loved. And so at the end of book two, you can kind of see her setting it up because you know from book one how it happens. And so she's like asking, like, can you bring me boots? And can you bring me a sweater? The very like first like opening passages of book one are a hunter coming across a body that's frozen and dead in the woods, which is her. And then her
Oh
brother
wow.
dealing with it through the first book. But the second book, the entirety of it is all dialogue. There's not a lick of narration at all that isn't in
Really?
inside dialogue. Yeah, and in classic Cormac McCarthy fashion, there are no quotation marks around anything. So it is just a back and forth between this girl and psychiatrist, and them talking about her life. It's not even like therapy, so I could open it up to the first page for you, but
Funny, I've experimented with that style before.
yeah, it made for an amazing audiobook because they got basically just two voice actors, one for the girl and one for the psychiatrist, and they just sat them down, and you can hear like the click of the tape as it turns on, and then they just have a dialogue back and forth, and then like the chapter ends with like, okay, we'll talk to you next time, and they click, and then it starts up again, and the whole thing is just a back and forth conversation. But it's really it's some very like some raw sort of stuff. There's this one part that says, if you had not become a mathematician, what would you like to have been? And she said, dead. He says, how serious a response is that? I took your question seriously. You should take my response seriously. Are you okay? Yes, maybe I did sort of blow off your question. What I really wanted was a child. What I do really want. If I had a child, I would just go in at night and sit there quietly. I would listen to my child breathing. If I had a child, I wouldn't care about reality. So there's like some really like just her like saying some surprising things that you wouldn't think of, and it all gets even more messed up because eventually, well, through the first book and in the second book, there's this understanding that the brother and sister are in love with one another, and that
Nice.
she wants to
Yeah,
have
I
her
wondered
brother's
if it-
child, and she can't because he refuses, and there's all this messed up stuff. So it becomes more and more tragic as it goes on. But it is
Uh-oh.
yeah, one of the first few books. Oh no. Oh no. Computer overheating. I am still live. Hello. This is my show. Well, I don't know if Nate will be back. He had a bunch of stuff on the tip of his tongue, he said, but I don't really know where to go from here. We could just end it, I suppose. Cormac McCarthy. I don't know exactly why Nate wanted to talk about this book, other than that I mentioned it was one of the first times that I ever ended up using these markers here. I don't really use flags. These, I guess, would be called flags. I usually use book darts like these, which most people probably also don't really have an awareness of. But these are little metal pins. They're like wafer thin, but you can put them on a page. It keeps your place. And I've loved those for a long time, but I just started doing this. Now, I filled this with book darts first, and then it was too hard to close, so I went back. Nate's messaging me. Oh, who's giving me a call? I'll start a call. Yeah, I can hear you. I'm still live on StreamYard. Oh, really? Should I leave then? I don't think so. I don't think they can hear you. Yeah, I will. I'll finish up. I'm talking about some little things, and then I'll switch to East of Eden, and then I'll probably, or I can just end it. We could always